Welcome all to the Graduation Equity Webinar Series. I'm Jocelyn Nunez, covering for Kathy Anderson. And today we're talking about future strategies for supporting mental health in the classroom. This meeting is being recorded and should be available in the next couple of days on our YouTube channel. Closed captions are available in the menu if you want to take advantage of that. And the PowerPoint is also posted on our OSPI Graduation Equity webinar page if you want to follow along. Ronnie Larson will also be dropping the resource sheet in this PowerPoint every 15 minutes throughout the webinar. This webinar is brought to you through the Office of Student Engagement and Supports. At OSPI, we believe that each student needs to be prepared for post-secondary pathways, careers, and civic engagement. At the Graduation Equity Webinar series, we aim to spotlight strategies for enhancing educational access and graduation rates. Through our webinars, we hope and that we have an opportunity today to get curious about ineffective policies. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure every student receives the necessary instruction and timely supports they need for academic and lifelong success. I'd like to share with you this photo from the Squaxin Island canoe journey from this past summer. We invite you all to honor the traditional lands on which each of you are located today, and we have some links on our resource sheet that you can use if you're not sure yet. I know that in my life, I mostly travel around the intersection of the traditional lands of the Squaxin Island, Cowlitz, Nisqually, and Cayuse tribes. I would like to acknowledge the Indigenous people who have stewarded this land since time immemorial and who still live here today. We live in such a beautiful place, and I want to encourage you all to visit your local tribes, learn more about tribal consultation, and build relationships with tribes benefit students and their families. And if you'd like to know more about it, we'd love to connect you with our Office of Native Education. We know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we believe mental health literacy is a pathway for students to be successful in school and in life. Access to mental health supports is vital for everyone, and one of the most important ways to get started is just to start normalizing mental health struggles by talking about what they are and how we can help one another. We're offering this webinar in the hopes that schools deepen their integration of mental health supports in their regular curriculum and see the value in explicitly training their staff and students on these skills. Today's webinar, we will be covering the 4 components of mental health literacy, get tiered support and shared language alignments that decrease stigma and increase help-seeking behaviors, cover strategies for increasing mental health support to strengthen school climate, and of course, learn from practitioners who have implemented these strategies in their classrooms and get you the resources to help you get started. We have a wonderful team of folks ready to present, including my colleague, Josh Kent, our mental health literacy program supervisor. Joining us today is also Sarah Ellsworth from ESD 113 and Caitlin Purry from Tumwater Middle School. We will also have a practitioner panel that I'll be introducing to you all later. But before I hand over the mic to my colleague Josh, we're going to take some time to learn who's with us today because we want to know who's here. So please feel free to enter your results in our poll. We have quite a bit of counselors, psych, community liaisons, attendance liaisons. And a few administrators, some district office folks. And we see a lot of participation from middle and high school. We have somewhat of familiar in this topic, so we hope you get to learn a little bit more. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. We get to see who's here. All right. I'm handing it over to Josh. Josh, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jocelyn. Happy to be here. And thanks for everyone being here to kind of listen in and talk about mental health literacy and just mental health in general. It's such an important topic right now. So I'm gonna start us off with a 1 minute mental health check-in. Let's check in with ourselves, see how we're feeling, pretty much despite the difficult emotions and challenges we are facing in our communities right now. We also have to remember to take care of ourselves so that we can care for others. That means being able to manage difficult emotions. So think to yourself, what are you feeling right now? What kind of activity would you do to help yourself kind of maybe feel better or just bring up your spirits or bring other spirits up? So I encourage you all take a moment, chat, put in the chat and share it out. I particularly want to say I'm thrilled, like happy, just joyous to kind of be here to share this information with you all, despite the difficult emotions I may be managing. And an activity that I like to do right now, I've been doing a lot of gardening, so that has bring a lot of happiness, definitely through all the difficulties. So if you feel free to share out what you might do in the chat, it might help others in this moment. Yeah, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. So, what is mental health literacy? Why are we having this webinar? So, as the need for mental health information and resources continues to grow, integrating mental health literacy in the classroom supports the whole student. By supporting schools and delivering clear and intentional social and health content, we can foster a safe and positive learning environment grounded in evidence-based practices and strong implementation strategies. Students' health, safety, and overall well-being will improve. This will allow for consistent school engagement. Whether you're an educator or district staff member, mental health literacy will quickly become interchangeable tools for empowering students in the classroom and beyond. The purpose is to have a dedicated instruction for students on mental health literacy and suicide prevention so that we can continue the social emotional development and maintain a healthy well-being. Now, I want to point out mental health literacy is not meant to diagnose or replace needed services. It's rather to engage students and support early identification of mental health needs. And I want to quickly define mental health literacy. It really involves understanding age-appropriate mental health concepts, recognition of mental health challenges and stigma, which one of the most important topics right now, awareness of available resources, and then development of healthy mental health promotion strategies and skills. Pretty much going back to the 1 minute mental health check-in. That's a simple activity that we can all do just to check in with ourselves every day. Right. So I'm going to move on to the benefits of mental health literacy. Sorry, I'm scrolling here. So the benefits of mental health literacy. It benefits every one of us in the classroom, in the school community, and just in our community in general. Students, they can be able to see improvements in their overall mental health and well-being. It could enhance their student learning, attendance, and engagement, feeling comfortable to ask questions, learn in the classroom. Educators may see an increase in self-awareness and emotional resilience, kind of speaking to ourselves and checking in with ourselves, which overall is to reduce psychological distress and burnout, which burnout, we can all relate to it. And I mention this because these benefits show us the importance to sustaining mental health and well-being and improving student success for each one of our districts. Oops, skipped one. All right, so the learning objectives and vision for mental health literacy. I'll quickly name the four learning components, which is the nationally recognized components for mental health literacy. The first is mental health competency, mental health promotion, mental health awareness and advocacy, and then mental health stigma. With this, mental health literacy will provide educators and students the opportunity to participate in whole student learning. And this learning is culturally responsive, research informed, sustainable, and simple to follow so that the content can be integrated effectively. Mental health literacy instruction encourages students to recognize risk factors and strengthen protective factors. By teaching coping and resilience skills, students learn to mitigate the impact of risk factors, fostering a proactive approach to mental health, which I think we can all relate to, most definitely. Have that issue. Just a sec. Oh, there it goes. So some key points to consider when maybe integrating mental health literacy or just thinking about bringing more mental health awareness into your classroom. I first want to just note that through this work, we want to focus on mental health literacy as strength-based learning. It needs to be trauma-informed, equity-focused, and then most importantly, incorporating principles of social emotional learning, which many of our districts are already doing. And some more key points. Mental health encompasses emotional, social, cognitive, and behavioral functioning. It exists within a continuum of care that includes all domains of health and well-being. That means physically, emotional safety, security, social connection, identity, diversity, and purpose. Teaching is a highly complex activity, and given teaching is a social practice, we rely on the values we set in the classroom to shape an environment that is inclusive and welcoming to all students. As a result, students feel understood and recognized and begin to prioritize their mental health equally to physical health. I want to move on to speaking to a whole child and student approach. The aim for this approach is to create educational opportunities in the classroom that are relationship centered because connections are important to mental health and well-being. It focuses on building upon a child's unique strengths, tailoring learning to their abilities, empowering them to take an active role, fostering positive relationships, and supporting their holistic development, both academically, socially, and emotionally. I couldn't emphasize that enough. And also, by utilizing universal principles, the mental health literacy ensures that mental health education is accessible, meaningful, empowering for every student, regardless of their background or learning preferences. And as we continue to integrate mental health literacy into education, um, the available material, all the curricula that is out there, it creates an equitable learning environment through culturally relevant, adaptable support and sustainable practices. That means we want to focus on multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. And I pointed to social emotional learning previously. I know most of our districts are practicing a lot of social emotional learning, and it's great. I'm all for it. Most importantly, I just want to emphasize and recognize the relationship between social emotional learning and mental health literacy. I think we'll speak to it a little bit more, but really, by embedding SEL and MHL into health education, schools can cultivate a generation of emotionally intelligent, resilient individuals who are better equipped to face life challenges after high school. And I want to quickly note a couple of these. So when you're speaking to mental health literacy, you really got to think about how it can be integrated. And social emotional learning is a really important aspect of that, which social emotional learning is integrated into each mental health literacy component, which makes for an easier transition and to utilize the skills we already have. And to also point out, social emotional learning is a foundation, and mental health literacy is an education to extend social emotional development. I couldn't emphasize that enough as well. So that moves on to, I want to share a couple resources. One within here, right in Washington State. It's called the Mental Health Instruction Library. And I want to point this out because it's been vastly important to my work and kind of researching. So to point out, it's a comprehensive library of curricula focusing on bringing more mental health literacy, social emotional learning, and many other topics for classroom implementation. It was produced through the partnership with UW Smart Center and Chad's Legacy. They are seeking to increase access to national resources on mental health literacy, including strategic planning tools, evaluation tools, cultural adaptation considerations, and adult mental health literacy programs. They're also planning to increase access to resources on universal screening. So I encourage you, if you have never heard of UW Smart Center, also known as Smarties, or the Chad's Legacy, some wonderful organizations providing some really good direction for this work. So please check out their websites. And for this, there's also a QR code for this website, and you can see the web link at the bottom. And lastly, it's a national resource called the Mental Health Literacy Collaborative. And I mentioned them because they really coordinate and lead an effort to bring more initiatives, to bring more mental health awareness into the classroom. So doing some great work. They are a national organization coordinating the efforts to bring more mental health literacy in classrooms and communities. They coordinate and collaborate with professionals across the country to bring more mental health awareness. Check out their webpage and sign up for their newsletters to learn more about their synchronous and asynchronous trainings and community of practice webinars. I've personally attended those trainings and also the community of practice webinars, so I encourage you as well because they're great learning environments. And I will pass it off back to Jocelyn. I appreciate everyone listening, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thanks so much, Josh. Thank you for walking us through that and for setting the stage for Sarah and Caitlin. Sarah Ellsworth has a bachelor's in psychology from Gonzaga University and a master's in counseling psychology from the University of Denver. Sarah has worked at ESD 113 with the True North Behavioral Health Program since 2008. Joining her is also Caitlin Purry, who is a graduate of University of Washington, and Centralia College. She has worked for ESD 113 True North for more than 7 years and currently provides Tier 1 and Tier 2 services at Tumwater Middle School as part of their student assistance professional model. Sarah and Caitlin, please feel free to join us.
And it looks like we do have an audience polling question. Just a little preview. If you can tell us in the chat, do you know what the 4 pillars are for mental health literacy? So we'll give you a few moments to answer that. If you don't, that's okay. We're going to talk about them. I'm seeing a lot of no's. So that's great. I'm really glad that you're here because that means hopefully you will learn something. And I went too fast. I apologize. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Sarah Ellsworth, and I'm the clinical director with ESD 113's True North Student Assistance Program. I so appreciate that beautiful introduction by Josh, and am excited and anxious to talk to you about mental health literacy. I'm going to do my best to breathe and speak slowly. As was mentioned in the introduction, social emotional learning and mental health literacy are separate but complementary and interlocking components of a comprehensive school mental health program. We will be talking today specifically about what mental health literacy is, the need for mental health literacy in our schools, and how mental health literacy can be woven into the fabric of our schools and communities as part of a robust, integrated, and comprehensive school mental health program. We will talk about this throughout today's session, but it is important to frame mental health literacy as a Tier 1 universal strategy. It is also important to note that mental health literacy is not just one thing. You won't leave here today with a single strategy or curriculum to implement, but we do hope you will leave with a better understanding of how mental health literacy might be integrated into your classrooms, schools, and communities. So back to our polling question, mental health literacy is defined by 4 components or pillars. They are understanding how to foster and maintain positive mental health, understanding common mental health disorders, signs, symptoms, and treatments, understanding how to seek help effectively, and understanding stigma and strategies for stigma reduction. When thinking about integrating mental health literacy into your school or community, you will want to consider the unique needs of your population. Questions you may want to consider when building a mental health literacy program include, what are the most pressing mental health issues at our school or community? How can these 4 pillars be addressed through a culturally relevant lens? What resources exist to support my students and community in help seeking? Thinking about these questions will help start to develop your mental health literacy program. We're going to spend some time taking a look at data to inform us regarding the need for mental health literacy for our students. I'm going to review a few pieces of Healthy Youth Survey data with you. For those who may not know, the Healthy Youth Survey is a collaborative effort of the Healthcare Authority, Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery, the Department of Health, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, the Liquor and Cannabis Board, and Looking Glass Analytics. The survey is administered every 2 years to students in 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grades in Washington State. The Healthy Youth Survey invites students in Washington to share about their well-being, behaviors, attitudes, community, and school experiences. The 2023 survey, which is the data we'll be looking at today, was the 18th statewide survey of Washington students and the 11th iteration of the Healthy Youth Survey. In 2023, over 215,000 students from all 39 counties participated. And we're going to take a look a little bit at what they're telling us about their mental health. This is statewide data based on students taking the survey across the state of Washington. However, you can visit the askhys.net website to review data at the local level, including by ESD region and county. Participating schools are also provided district and building level data. Of the questions that are posed to students, the survey asks about depressive feelings, anxious thoughts, and not being able to stop or control worry. It's important to note that these are not diagnostic questions, but do provide good insight into the types of mental health challenges our students are facing and bringing into the classroom. As you can see, depression, anxiety are real issues for our students. If you're curious about the way the question was phrased, depressive feelings is based on students who report feeling sad or hopeless for at least 2 weeks in the past year. Anxious is students who report feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge over the past 2 weeks. And being unable to control worry is students who said they are unable to stop or control their worrying in the past 2 weeks. When we look at this data and we think about it through an educational lens, our students are distracted in the classroom. They have a lot going on for them that may prevent them from attuning to their learning. This next slide is about suicidal feelings and actions and what students reported on the Healthy Youth Survey. Again, this is pretty concerning when we think about the yellow box is students who considered suicide at some point in the past year. The blue dark green box is those students who had made a suicide plan at some point in the last year. And the lighter green box is students who have made a suicide attempt in the past year. Again, when we look at this, we can tell a lot is going on for our students. And these final questions relate to the sources of social support our students identify and whether or not there is an adult in their life they can turn to when they do feel sad or hopeless. The chart on the left, as you can see, there's a little bit of good news here. Many of our students do have people they feel connected to and who support them. However, despite many students feeling connected, if you look at the chart on the right, for all grades, close to 40%, approaching half of our students said they don't have an adult they can turn to when they feel sad or hopeless. Keeping in mind the 4 components of mental health literacy, this data articulates a clear need to provide more support and skill building for our students through the lens of mental health literacy. Schools are in an ideal position to deliver effective mental health literacy to our youth. Daily, schools are where most of our youth are. Schools are also the place that a lot of student issues present themselves. If we don't address our students' mental health needs, their risk for academic failure and dropout increases. Investment in mental health literacy is ultimately an educational investment. Additionally, the traditional responsive model for mental health is not working. Student mental health needs have increased over the past decade, and we are not in a position to treat our way out of the issue. We need to be implementing strategies for prevention of problems and establishing a strong foundation of positive mental health for all students. By building a system focused on prevention and early intervention, we can also reduce the impact and strain on the treatment and crisis systems, ensuring that students get the right care at the right time. It's also important to note that clinical expertise is not required to teach mental health literacy. Just like these skills and strategies can be taught to students with quality professional development, teachers can develop the skills to teach and deliver mental health literacy as part of the regular school day. Mental health literacy is well aligned with what schools already do, which is educate students, teaching literacy, and building new skills. Thinking of mental health literacy as a Tier 1 strategy also provides a framework for alignment of mental health literacy with other school-wide initiatives, building consistency in language, skills, and expectations, as well as connecting to the larger system and helping connect students in need to Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. Ideally, mental health literacy is not delivered as a standalone strategy. Mental health literacy is most effective when implemented as a systems approach through a multi-tiered systems framework. Mental health literacy is not the only Tier 1 support in a comprehensive school mental health program. Additional complementary Tier 1 strategies are recommended and critical, including social emotional learning, suicide prevention, and trauma-informed practices. We want to support students' overall health and well-being. We also know that if mental health literacy is implemented effectively, students in need who may be struggling will engage in help-seeking behavior. And embedding early intervention supports at Tier 2, as well as school-based mental health services or referral pathways at Tier 3 is important. And although mental health literacy is a Tier 1 strategy, it does have direct impacts on the service delivery system. First, by helping prevent issues from developing in the first place, potentially reducing the drain on overburdened systems and freeing those systems to be responsive to the students most in need of support. Mental health literacy can also support early identification and intervention, which creates opportunities to address mental health needs before they become overwhelming. The remainder of our presentation is going to focus on implementation of mental health literacy within a student assistance model. Student assistance programs are embedded in school sites throughout the state of Washington and are an example of how mental health literacy can be integrated as a larger systems approach. For those who aren't familiar, student assistance is a comprehensive school-based framework designed to provide a variety of support services to students across the K-12 spectrum and address non-academic barriers to success. Student assistance programs are integrated within an MTSS and typically focus on Tier 1 and Tier 2 support, most often with a focus on substance use prevention, mental health promotion, and early intervention for behavioral health needs, meaning substance use or misuse and mental health. As mentioned in the previous slide, student assistance programs are focused on education, prevention, and early identification or intervention, Tier 1, Tier 2 supports. At Tier 1, student assistance professionals located in schools provide a variety of functions, including classroom-based and school-wide education related to substance use prevention and mental health promotion, including mental health literacy. At Tier 2, supports provided by a student assistance program include screening, early intervention through the use of evidence-based programs focused specifically on substance use and mental health. Traditional student assistance programs also provide guided support and referrals to external providers and Tier 3 supports as needed. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting my slide to progress. There we go. And while we often focus on interventions provided by student assistance services, the number of students impacted by intervention is pretty small, about 10 to 15% of the student population, but all students benefit from having a student assistance program in their school. Student assistance reaches all students through a combination of substance use prevention and mental health promotion, effective education, and universal campaigns. Student assistance professionals can support the implementation and coordination of a robust mental health literacy program within the school and larger community, as will be discussed by my colleague, Caitlin Peary. Caitlin?
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Peary, and I'm very grateful to be here speaking about this today. I am a student assistance professional at Tumwater Middle School. This is my 4th year doing the behavioral health program at TMS. So most of our practices are really embedded in the framework of the school, which is very helpful because the more coordination with school and the district, the better our program operates. So that's things like flexibility around scheduling, providing us spaces, teacher buy-in, and participation in our monthly prevention campaigns. So I'm going to start with speaking about our mental health literacy learning in the classroom. So we provide a variety of presentations within the schools to promote mental health literacy at a Tier 1 level. Our first presentation is speaking about the TRAILS Social Emotional Learning Curriculum. This is multiple sessions of classroom presentations about SEL. And we also have a TRAILS Stress and Coping presentation, which is a variety of mindfulness and coping skills provided to students. We also have our addiction and vape education that focuses on substance use prevention. So most of this curriculum is evidence-based practice from the University of Michigan Medical School and the TRAILS program. It's largely CBT-based. So that includes mindfulness, meditation, the think, feel, do CBT cycle, things like gratitude, grounding and relaxation, and breathing techniques or other skills that students can use at school to manage their emotions and behaviors. So providing these coping skills to embed in the classroom helps teachers with their mental health literacy and emotional regulation as well. We coordinate with the school staff to do these presentations, and this promotes common practices and vocabulary, which is school-wide mental health literacy. From these presentations, we also receive referrals to our screening for Tier 2 services or referrals to Tier 3 services and community partners, which I will touch on later. So this next slide, I'm going to be speaking about mental health literacy in the school, which is a Tier 1 service. So you'll see a couple of pictures from our prevention club, which is our behavioral health leadership club. Prevention Club is a monthly behavioral health club that does tier 1 services, which are universal and delivered by our students. So behavioral health leadership clubs, students read announcements. They might host lunch campaigns with trivia or activities and prizes. So we do see a lot of buy-in from the students in understanding mental health literacy when it is coming from their peers in a leadership position. So on this slide, you will be able to see our monthly prevention campaign calendar. So this is a really concrete place that we start from for our behavioral health leadership clubs, and it's something that anyone can do at their school through the campaigns that we are going to link in the PowerPoint with websites as well. So each month we have a topic for mental health literacy, including in September, we have Are You OK Day, which is suicide prevention. We see high rates of suicidal ideation upon students returning to school in the fall. So we try to increase awareness and well-being, as well as access to resources for these feelings. In October, we do Red Ribbon Week, which is substance use prevention. We also do Unity Day, which is an anti-bullying promotion for belonging and respect. In November, we do Gratitude Month. January is Stress and Coping Skills. February, we do Random Acts of Kindness. March is our Natural High Substance Use Prevention campaign. April is self-care, and May, we are currently doing our Mental Health Awareness Month. So all of these have links that will be provided if you are interested in participating in these campaigns at your school as well. Now I'm going to speak a little bit about my services as a student assistance professional with ESD 113 and how I'm able to increase mental health literacy at the school in tiers 2 and 3. So our screening and referrals are a tier 2 service. We do attend MTSS meetings, so that's multi-tiered systems of support. And during these meetings, we receive referrals based on student need. So this could be academic stresses, behavioral issues, or substance use. When we receive those referrals, a student will complete a True North screening with me, as well as a GAIN short screener. And depending on the results of those screeners, we will refer a student to certain services. So for our groups, we have tier 2 intervention services that we do locally at our school. The first one is a TRAILS Stress and Coping Skills group, which is similar to the presentations that we are building on those skills. We also do a group called Affected Others, which is for students who are struggling with substance use in their home or their environment. We also do a vape education class, a teen intervene substance use intervention group, as well as our recovery group for students who are looking for help with staying in recovery. So besides referring to our own tier 2 intervention services, we refer to school and community-based services as well in order to create a more cohesive mental health literacy between the community and ourselves. So some of the programs that we refer to are we're very fortunate at TMS to have other school-based partnerships. One includes CMAR, our mental health treatment that we coordinate with, and our Together program, which does financial assistance. So this is for things like transportation or sports physicals, dental and vision assistance, things like that. Another example that I'd like to share is that during our MTSS meetings, we were able to connect a student who was experiencing academic struggles and anxiety. When speaking with the student, we learned that she had a vision disability that was significantly creating anxiety. And we were able to connect her with technology that supported her need. Another example is we had a student experiencing stress about their diabetes levels. Their phone charger that was in the nurse's office was not working very effectively. So we were able to connect them with the Together financial program who offered assistance with replacing that device. So those are some examples of community connections that we make. We also prefer to make referrals out to community that will connect students with other supports. So this could be things like connecting with local Native tribes. It could be the Timberland Library programs. We have the YWCA Youth Action Circle that hosts an after-school club at Tumwater Middle School. We also have a Dungeons and Dragons club that is very popular, and many of our complex needs students have found a lot of belonging and reduced stigma and understanding of their mental health needs in that school club. So it's really a variety of not only our own Tier 2 services, but referral to Tier 3 services like substance use and mental health treatment and other community services that will increase that mental health literacy and senses of belonging. So on this slide, I'm going to speak a little bit about what our company does to promote mental health literacy in the community. So it's very important to have, as I've said, to provide education to the community, as well as connecting that language or understanding that we are using at schools. So these are presentations that we offer to the community. These are in person or on Zoom, and that's for accessibility and determined by school need. So the first one that we have is our Parent Night Out presentation. So this is to develop skills for talking to youth about substance use. Our Friends for Life presentation is an educational presentation about opioids and fentanyl. Our stress, anxiety, and coping skills presentation is similar to the one provided in the classroom, which creates that understanding of mental health literacy. We also have our youth mental health first aid, and all of these are opportunities for families and community members to use integrated language and understanding of mental health literacy throughout the community. So for this page, I'm going to speak about some individual impacts from our program that we've had at Tumwater Middle School. We do all sorts of things from promoting the mental health literacy in presentations and those prevention campaigns to the interventions and referrals. This is to create that increased understanding of the 4 components of mental health literacy, which hopefully you've learned, which are the understanding mental health concepts, recognition of stigma and challenges, awareness of available resources, and developing those coping skills. So you'll see a few impact statements from our students at TMS. The first one says, I learned ways to cope with stress and anxiety. The next one says, I like that I can relate to other people and they understand my feelings. So that's the increased belonging, emotional understanding, and communication. This one says, I have a safe place to be myself and hang out with my friends. And I learned that you aren't alone with your situation and that there are people to talk to and learn from. So I'm going to briefly tell you a few of our stories from Tumwater Middle School about students who have had a lot of success with our program. So we're going to start with Dylan, who is as a sixth grader, was a district transfer from a low-income family. He had very low attendance, behavioral and academic struggles, and was a discipline referral for our vape education class as a sixth grader. So in seventh grade, he got a second discipline referral for vaping. So he was screened and referred to our Tier 2 group intervention for Teen Intervene for substance use. He actually elected to continue our groups and attend the Affected Others group for students experiencing that in their homes. And upon completion, he was eligible to start the Behavioral Health Leadership Prevention Club. So in eighth grade, he had regular attendance, lower behavioral struggles, higher academic achievement, and continued participating in our prevention club. He also elected to attend the Tier 2 Trails group about stress and coping skills. So a big development from that student that is very characteristic of what our program can do in the schools. And lastly, I'm going to share a story about Emily. So this story is very close to my heart. Emily started as a sixth grader in the Tier 1 Prevention Club during lunches and after school club. She was really overwhelmed by the lunches and the anxiety from moving from elementary to middle school. And yes, these names have been changed. So the Prevention Club offered her a place to eat lunch quietly, meet other students interested in learning about behavioral health topics, and increasing that mental health literacy. So in seventh grade, the MTSS core team, as well as her family and herself, referred for a screening. So because of that screening, we did connect her with mental health treatment. And there's, as you know, a long wait list for those services. So while she was waiting, she attended an in-person Tier 2 service, which was the Trail Stress and Coping groups at school. The second semester of seventh grade, she actually got into the leadership class, and her parent attended the youth mental health first aid community training in order to make sure that she was safe at home as well. In eighth grade, she became our prevention club leader. She also became our ASB president and won a student leadership award. So from these, you can see that our sustained program of 4 years now and access to resources and mental health literacy significantly improved both of these students' well-being. So for this last slide, we want to recognize that not everyone has a student assistance professional. Prevention campaigns are a great place to start increasing mental health literacy. So we have provided links to the evidence-based practices and monthly campaigns that we use at our school and in our program. And hopefully that will give you a good place to start with speaking about and implementing that mental health literacy in your schools. So I believe that we are going to be taking some questions at this point.
Yes, thank you so much, Caitlin and Sarah. Let's give it up for Caitlin, Sarah, and Josh with our reaction buttons, and above all, giving it up for Dylan and Emily. Wow, extraordinary work, y'all. And y'all see all the love. If we have any questions for either Sarah, Caitlin, or Josh, feel free to bring them up in the Q&A. We did get a question in the chat. Do you have any resources or curriculum for addressing healthy habits with social media and related to mental health?
We can get you the name of a curriculum. I do know that I'm blanking on the name of it, but there is curriculum around positive use of internet and social media for youth. I want to say it's called something like digital. I'm going to find it for you.
That sounds good. It looks like the question was posed in the chat. If you want to link it there, Sarah, that would probably be really helpful for folks. But if there are no other further questions in the Q&A, we're going to go ahead and move forward with what it looks like to do this work. And joining us for our panel are Renee Cruikshank and Mabel Thackeray. So Renee Cruikshank is a graduate of the Evergreen State College and Pacific Lutheran University, has worked at Tumwater Middle School for over 25 years, and is passionate about providing mental health literacy in the classroom. Alongside Renee, we have Mabel Thackeray, and has over 25 years of experience providing much needed mental health intervention, whether that's been in the community or the classroom. She does bring a lot of passion to building systems of change so that each student has access to some equitable mental health services. Welcome, Mabel and Renee. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. I would like to take this time for us to, if you both would like to introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about your role and the importance of your role. And I'll start with Mabel.
Good morning. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, everyone. It's such an honor to be here, especially being May, Mental Health Awareness. Muchas gracias por invitarme. Voy a dar honor a mi comunidad y hablar en español porque es importante respetar también nuestra cultura. I just want to say thank you, and I want to honor my culture as I speak proudly and represent the Hispanic community. I moved to Washington in 2018. I'm originally coming from Florida, and I have been working as a licensed mental health counselor and as a school counselor, doing simultaneously both roles for 25 years, working with communities, working with hospitals, tribal schools, rural communities, and now proudly working with North Thurston School District, which is so amazing to have our own mental health program. And we are so lucky to have an amazing team. But I also want to shout out my previous team. I want to say ESD 114. I miss you all, for all my Clallam County, my rural communities, my super counselors. I miss you all. Amazing work at Spokane, which I am a state supervisor, and I provide mental health support via telehealth for those communities that don't have an amazing work that ESD provides. And a lot of times don't have any school counselors or licensed clinicians like myself. So thank you for having me here.
Renee, and feel free to introduce yourself and just talk to us a little bit about your role and the importance of your role.
Yeah, and you already told a little bit about me. I'm Renee Cruikshank, and I am here at Tumwater Middle School. I have taught a variety of things. I started out as a paraeducator, and I I worked as a paraeducator and decided to go back to get my teaching credentials. I worked in special education for a while. I've done intervention programs, math and reading, and then I started teaching health. So I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade health for about the last 12 years. And that was a role where I saw almost every student on campus because health class was 1 quarter long. And so we kind of reached some really great collective numbers. And then last year, I had an opportunity we started a new RISE program here at Tumwater Middle School. It's a self-contained program. RISE stands for Reaching Independence with Education and Support. And so it's a self-contained environment with kids who need to reach independence with education and support. And it's kind of a little bit of a going back to my roots. So I'm glad to be here.
No, thank you both for being here. I'm curious to know a little bit about what our headliners covered, what our headliners covered earlier, and how that has impacted the work that you do in your school. Mabel, do you think you can take it away with that question?
Absolutely. Again, thank you. For me, mental health is passion, mental health is health, mental health prevention, mental health is attendance, mental health is education. So thank you, Sarah and Caitlin, because you did a beautiful presentation, putting together what SEL and mental health can do together. As we all know, and I'm just going to make some quotes here, according to the Mental Health America, Washington State is 48 out of the 50 states on youth mental health. And you saw those percentages of students with anxiety, depression. We know that in Washington State, suicide attempts are twice as much as many other states. And to my marginalized and migrant communities, it's 5 times more. So, muchas gracias a los maestros, administradores, y consejeros que ayudan a mi comunidad hispana. En este momento lo necesitan. Thank you to all the teachers, administrators, and counselors that are supporting my migrant communities because their fear is real. So I want to say that I do provide a lot of support to counselors, administrators, staff, communities, and we work together with a lot of our supports. And I can assure you, I'm presenting to schools and weekly doing threat assessments, suicide plans, and elementary schools. So those percentages that you saw, middle and high school, it is happening in kinder, in first grade, in second grade. So for us to talk about mental health, it's absolutely necessary. And having a combination of social, emotional, which I know most districts have, but I just want to say there's not enough counselors. There's definitely not enough licensed clinicians like myself providing direct tier 2, 3, all across the MTSS model. And we cannot thank enough to all the ESD for the amazing support that they do to all of districts. We couldn't do it without you. The student assistant professionals do an amazing work for those districts that do not have enough counselors. And shout out to all my counselors because you are the triage of the schools every day. But for those districts that don't have it, I can assure you to at the panel, it is real. The anxiety, the fear, which it can be reflected in attendance, can be reflected in referrals, aggression, and of course in suicide. So I want to say all across social, emotional, and mental health, it needs to be as much as math and reading. There will not be learning without mental health.
Thank you so much, Mabel. I think you bring up a really important, really important point about your role and the kind of role you play for the district. And I'm curious to know a little bit more about what are some actions an educator can do to benefit from the type of services you provide on a more district level. And then Renee, I'll ask and pose the same question to you in the type of role that you have, but I'll have Mabel, if you can answer that, especially the kind of supports from a district level into a more school or school classroom setting.
Absolutely. Our school district, we do have a social emotional curriculum, which is definitely a must for cover the baseline. And so we, as my role, as a mental health specialist, but also as a counselor, provide support to the counselors going into the lessons, which I know our district and many districts have those 10, 15 minutes of social emotional. It is absolutely foundational, especially in the elementary level, um, and doing class presentations, doing monthly assemblies, parenting nights, being available for parents. So I just want to say it's all across. It's working together. I also want to give a big thank you to all my ESA colleagues that work in all the districts. We're talking about social workers, school psychs, and any other clinicians that provide, because mental health is a continuum where all work together. It's not a silo that one program, one person, one team. I think, as I said, mental health is health, and it's everyone's responsibility, just like safety is everyone's responsibility.
Renee, what about you in terms of your role, and what benefits can an educator have in their classroom about the type of things that you used to do or currently do now?
I think first off, Mabel, I really appreciate everything you said, and that kudos to all these people that are involved, because it cannot be done in a vacuum. And if we want change, and that's part of, I think, Jocelyn, your question, what can everybody else do? So Caitlin has impacted our school a lot, and all the groups she served, all those kids go out to also impact that. But I think, and the fact that our district supports that, our district lets that happen. They have her come back. When Caitlin and I were talking the other day, it was also about that. I used to get a lot of guest speakers, and so they again allowed that. So it is all health, and everything is about our health, and mental health is health, and perhaps more important, and it affects every area. So I think that when we talk about some of the concrete actions, um, educators often feel like they're being asked to do more with less all the time. And that's pretty true. But there's actions we can do that don't require much time or money, maybe none at all. And all of that can help shift what's going on. And so I think also a lot of educators probably already do more of these things than they realize, whatever specifics. Somebody comes along and says, hey, you all need to do this SEL curriculum. And sometimes people roll eyes and feel frustrated. But we can create an environment that honors basic human needs. Mm-hmm. And we can do that anywhere. No time, no money, no initiative, just that we know that that's important. And so my students know, I always trust that they know their body better than I know their body. So something as simple as, if you need to use the bathroom, use the bathroom. If you need to get up and move, get up and move. And when I've talked to people, sometimes they'll say, well, but then it's disruptive, or then they use that as an excuse. That's why you pre-teach. That's why, just like all your classroom rules, expectations, procedures, you teach those and you reinforce those. So I would teach my kids, you can get up unless I say you can't because it's a test, get up. You don't walk by and grab somebody's backpack. You don't go by and high five them. You just get up and go to the back of the room and stretch or whatever you need. So a lot of it is just creating a space that, again, doesn't cost anything. And there's other things that you can do, like having flyers in your class. Not just the physical flyers, which I can talk to a little bit, but I had like Safe Place flyers and True North and the Youth Helpline, trying to think of some of the others, Washington Trafficking Prevention. Having those flyers and brochures in class sends a message. So even though a lot of times that was a topic that we were covering, those were there all the time. I had kids sometimes who had not ever been in my class show up to pick up a brochure. And so they were just always available, and that's important. I think, and we had some little fold ups that I think we got from Safe Place. One of them was like positive friendships, one of them was addiction, one was about stalking. And they were just little business card, little folders. And so I would put those in places where it seems like they were needed. And sometimes kids would ask if they could take those. Having incident reports in your classroom so that if there's a situation, kids know it is important to report it. I also had some guest speakers who came in that went over all those forms and the rules and regulations so that kids knew you can have a say, and here's all those why you can have those says. So yeah, I had a lot of guest speakers come into my classroom, and that was mostly something that didn't ever cost. But that was, I had counselors come in. Caitlin would always come in, even if what you do is invite the school counselors in just to introduce themselves. And it's good for kids to get up and move. And one of the ways to do that is get them up and take a field trip up to the counseling center so they know where it is. So there's just a lot of ways that those things can be interrelated.
That's perfect. You're talking a lot about visibility, the pre-teaching, setting a tone for your students. And I'm curious throughout these events or these opportunities that your students have had a chance to sit in. Can you share, Renee, a story or a success story from what you've implemented in the classrooms? Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that there's been lots of success stories, and sometimes, again, as an educator, if you don't hear back from all the kids, it's frustrating. And sometimes I hear from other people or the kids come back, but I know that we also, and again, no cost, you can teach breathing techniques, relaxation techniques, and these days there's so many things online that if you're not somebody who wants to talk about nice deep breaths, you can just play any one of those. And Caitlin has come back to me to say, I ask kids about breathing techniques and they always know a bunch. And I say, where did you learn them? And they say, from Cruikshank's health class. So I think that anytime they take something out of class, or when I have a student who says, a friend of mine who was in your class told me this, that says a lot. Or when I have a kid who's never had my class show up and want to pick up like one of the brochures or whatnot. So it takes some upfront work on all that, but we do that as educators and it pays off. And we don't always know who it's going to connect with. Um, and then you and I, when we were talking initially, there's times too that it has a lot to do with how you set things up. So in my class, I had a give me space, and it was just a stool that you go sit on. So you could come in and go straight there. And it just meant we would leave you alone. And they knew I wouldn't leave them alone forever. But they also knew I'd give them some amount of time. I didn't set a timer. And then I'd go back and I'd just say, how are you doing? And they knew that didn't mean tell me everything that's upsetting you. It meant I just need a couple more minutes. Or it meant, can you write me a pass to the counselor? And so there were a lot of, when we had guests come in, I had guests from all those places I named, Safe Place and the Youth Crisis Line, and there were some pretty delicate topics that my speakers brought in, plus what I already did. So the story that I was sharing previously with Jocelyn was I had a student who guest speakers started, and they always knew if they needed to step out, they could. All stuff we talked about over and over, or if it was something I was talking about. And the student put their head down, and I'm pretty sure it was the speaker from the Youth Crisis Line. And she put her head down, and I just let her put her head down. And I walked over a while later and just said, kind of how you doing? And she just nodded. So I just walked away. A little bit later, someone came over and told me that she was crying. And I didn't go rushing over there. You don't need to save someone from crying. We tend to think we have to save everybody from all of their feelings, and we don't. And I was glad that she felt comfortable doing that. So I let her just kind of be for a little minute. And then I went over and I said, you okay? Do you need to step out? And I remember she said, "No, I need to be here." And she did not need to be there because I said she had to. She was seated near the door. She could have quietly got up and walked out. No one would have ever noticed. But she knew that she needed to stay. I could have said, "No, no, you're making people uncomfortable by crying, and you must be embarrassed. And let me help you get out of here." And she stayed, and that's exactly what she needed. Likewise, I then went back to my computer and sent a message to our counselors saying, "Hey, here's what's up, here's what's going on. If you could be here at the end of the period to check in, that would be great." And so when class dismissed, the counselor was outside the door and they probably walked up to the counseling session, so our counseling office.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Renee. I think that's a really great um, example of what it's like to also be very sensitive, culturally sensitive to the things that also may come up in the classroom. And so maybe it makes me think a little bit about how, in your role, can you support counselors supporting teachers and educators? How can we make that happen to be that kind of seamless transition that Renee just described through that story?
Absolutely. That happens almost daily for me, exactly what Renee talks about. In our district, and I know many districts have that, we do have that 10, 15 minutes social emotional. For example, Northwestern has second steps as a tier one, but I know many schools have different other programs, Character Strong, Kelso, etc., especially at the elementary level, and continues all the way to high school. But I can assure you, sometimes there are topics that we have to cover, for example, the child abuse or concerns about sexual abuse, safety, unit protection. Usually counselors or myself, we are present in those lessons because exactly what Renee described, we know those little faces when we present those topics and, it's child appropriate, all those curriculum have been already approved. Those children immediately put their heads down, and we know they are. So I am ready, the counselor is ready to talk to them privately, of course. And thank you for saying cultural, because I, for one, will always honor their culture, their language, with their preference. I am big proponent of having family involved as much as I can. I make myself available for parenting at elementary level. I can tell you that on a daily basis, I am present at kinder level. The importance of that social emotional regulation, or little ones are coming so dysregulated. And when I tell you our teachers are overwhelmed, there's two or three in each classroom, and all you need is one of them to no one learns, no one teaches. And a lot of these children, they just run. They're afraid, they don't know their body. So teaching all those important skills about what is happening to their body. I do a lot of coaching with teachers. I do a lot of coaching with admin. Of course, I do a lot of, like I said, suicide assessments, threat assessments. It is happening in all levels, as you all saw the stats of middle, high school are concerned. And imagine if we would assess those same scores in elementary. Of course, most districts, as we know with OSPI, we all have social emotional screeners. So we meet up with counselors. I meet with my counselors and we coordinate the kids. They need to be a tier one, a tier two, coordinate group supports, specifically what the areas are, whether it's anxiety, whether it's attendance, whether it's depression, divorce, immigration, and fear of not coming to school. I want to say to everyone that is listening, see underneath what's really happening. That anxiety and fear is more than just not coming to school, or not wanting to do the work, or not wanting to listen. Remember, our behavior is a language, and it's a need that is not met. So we need to see more, have that restorative, proactive approach to say what is really happening to the child, to the teenager, and have that mindful opportunity to say, how can I help you? When I call parents, even the ones that are referrals for aggression and inappropriate language or self-harm, my approach is, how can I help you? What can I do to help? I think having that non-judgmental approach to anyone, students, staff, or staff needs support. And if anyone in this presentation is listening, please support mental health in our schools at all levels. And it's gonna get something that it will help education. So our students need it, our staff need it to prevent burnout. And admins, let admin do admin, let teachers teach, and let everyone that supports students help our students so we can support education, which is what they're there in school.
That's a great point, Mabel. And I think one that I revisit right now in my mind, as Renee was talking a little bit earlier about the changes or the things that you can implement in your classroom, especially having other folks present in your classroom. And so, Renee, I'm curious if you could share with us a little bit about what your calendar looked like to do this kind of work, to streamline some of those events throughout the school year.
Yes, I'd be happy to. I haven't been doing much with that in my current program, but I do want to bring more in. And I think that, again, that whole idea of if kids are dysregulated, if kids are wrapped up in all these things that are running through their heads, they're not learning much. And so we need to make that a priority and take the time to do that. And that means meeting kids where they're at. And that can be a challenge. But the people that I had come in, what I did is our system was a quarterly system. So I had decided when I first started teaching health, I had asked my own kids, I said, what were some of the things that you liked most about middle school? And one of the things that they both talked about was guest speakers. They always thought guest speakers were interesting. So I think my first guest speaker came from the Thurston County Dispute Resolution Center Youth Enhancement Program people. They happen to have a grant. It's not something we would have been able to afford otherwise. Once I got them, I started to look at, okay, what unit am I doing when, and how can I get these people, especially because it's quarterly. And so I realized that if I'm going to do this particular topic, probably the second week of class or third or fourth, I would start getting a commitment from them. Can you come back 3 more times? And so it took a couple years to get it pretty seamless, but I would have, again, youth crisis lines, safe place. I had the local fire department come in and do CPR classes. Later, we actually got to use fire extinguishers. I would have True North come in. So what I did is just got them on the schedule. And by the end of the quarter, I usually had 8 or 10 speakers. It depended, and not always for one class. So for an example, True North would come, maybe do something about vaping with my 6th graders, maybe something about internet safety with my 7th. So I kind of rotated those things around so that it wasn't too repetitive. So I had a database, who to contact, when I usually wanted them, a variety of pieces of information for me. And then I shared that with my office staff and the counselors, and then also True North, because it was really important that they know who was coming. Maybe they don't want to take a kid out that day, but more important is now you know that somebody's coming today, and or they knew ahead to talk about trafficking prevention, because otherwise that's kind of going to blindside them. All of a sudden, where are all these kids coming from that suddenly they're all talking about the youth crisis line, or they're all talking about where's the domestic violence shelter in town. So it was important for them to be looped in. And I also liked them to know who was coming, so they already knew a little bit what is being talked about, what background knowledge kids might already have a little of. And anytime we can do things together and layer those things in, a kid might not hear it from me. They might have got the business card in my room, but they might not hear it from me. But maybe they really can hear it from my guest speaker. Maybe they couldn't really hear it from my guest speaker, but when Caitlin checks in with them later, all of a sudden it puts it together. No, I didn't really care if Cruikshank said it. I didn't really care if the guest speaker said it, but oh, Ms. Puri knows about this too. And I think that things like that, and learning how to participate, even if it's challenging, and learning that you can pick your own level of participation. Because again, it's back to also that kind of just honoring this is your human need. So, and I think these are things that other teachers can get guest speakers, or they can get, doesn't even have to be an outsider. They can get somebody else to come in and teach a breathing technique or a relaxing technique. But putting together a calendar so people knew what to expect was really, really valuable. I think people appreciated it.
What a way to definitely put some systems in place there too, Renee, to make your counselors and all those folks aware about what's in the calendar, right? I think we're getting close to the end of our time here, so I'm just gonna ask both of you if you have some lessons learned or what is something you'd like us to walk away from today. What would that be? And Mabel, I'll start with you.
Thank you. I think just going to piggyback what Renee said. When we think about resilience, which, those are the factors that prevents mental health, burned out, or even crisis, because we always think who can present a mental health crisis? Is anyone, everyone at any time? What makes the difference is the tools and the skills that we all have learned. And when I think about resilience, creating that one person, sometimes that's all it takes. And that could be anyone in the school. So I want to empower everyone that is listening and will listen afterwards. The power of every adult in the building. We're talking about lunch bus drivers, custodians, of course, my super magic counselors, every ESA administrator, teachers, and anyone that provides support. And because I wish every single school would have mental health as a priority and could afford to hire licensed clinicians or add more counselors into the staff, and of course rely on students, assistant professionals. They do a magnificent job on that. I want to say everyone needs to take a responsibility. I said that before in another meeting, another training, we need to do this for our students. Our students need us. They are burning, not just our adults. We they work in schools, every level. Our students need us now more than ever. So we need to speak mental health, because again, mental health is attendance, mental health is academics, mental health reduce behaviors, mental health reduce substance abuse. So if we focus on the basics, I want to say let's go Maslow before we go Bloom. Let's focus on what's really important in our children and create emotional safety. As a counselors, we believe all students learn when we're given this safe environment and everyone has access to a school counseling program where mental health is part of the MTSS.
Renee, one last thing you'd like to share, or something you'd like folks to walk away from today?
I think Mabel summed it up well. Mental health is health. The only thing that didn't really talk about much is for the adults to remember when you're having a strange day or week or month, what kinds of things help you feel supported, because it's not going to be dissimilar, although everyone's unique. Remember that as well. And then the other thing too is I just saw a comment involved in your local union. Those are bargained for things a lot of times, and please make sure that you connect, because your voice needs to be heard and your involvement matters in all these kids' lives in all these areas. So thank you so much.
Thank you, both of you, Mabel and Renee. Let's give it up for Mabel and Renee. I've been seeing all the love come through. We hope that today's topic and conversation doesn't end here, and that you all get a chance to discuss your ideas with your leadership teams and your professional learning communities, and of course with your students. We have a list of resources. Thank you, Ronnie, who's been dropping the resource sheet and the PowerPoint. It's also posted on our graduation equity webinar webpage, and you have links to all of these. We will be kicking off the start of the new school year with our Back to School Toolkit webinar in August. And this will be a new link that you can use right now to register for the next school year starting in August. So please share the link with your friends and colleagues who may be interested and register to join us again. We have launched an evaluation. We would like to get more information from our audience about our webinars so that we stay up to date and we really do take this into consideration as we're developing our calendar as well. What worked and what can we adjust? We'd like to see our listeners get clock hours for joining us. If you joined live, you've already registered for the year through Zoom. You'll also need to register for clock hours monthly in PD Enroller. And PD Enroller will send an evaluation to your email, will verify your attendance, and release your hours. If you're watching the video later on our YouTube channel, the process does change. We'll register each month for clock hours in PD Enroller and complete the eval. And you'll also do your graduation equity feedback survey to signal to us that you have watched the video. We'll verify your attendance every 2 weeks and release your hours that way. If you have any particular questions about this, please feel free to email Ronnie Larson, who does our clock hour support. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you back in August.
Thank you for having us and offering this. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Renee.
Gracias a todos.